Story 5 of the Fairy Ring. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Reading by Lars Rolander. The Fairy Ring, edited by Kate Douglas Wiggin and Nora Archibald Smith. Story 5. The Golden Bird. There was once upon a time a king who had a garden. In that garden there was an apple tree, and on that apple tree there grew a golden apple every year. But when the time came to pluck the apple it was gone, and no one knew who took it or what became of it, but gone it was. The king had three sons, and one day he told them that he who could bring him the apple or get hold of the thief should have the kingdom after him, no matter whether he was the eldest, the second, or the youngest son. The eldest set out first, and sat down under the tree to keep watch for the thief. Soon after dark a golden bird came flying, and light from it was so strong and dazzling that it could be seen a long way off. When the prince saw the bird and the dazzling light, he became so frightened that he dared not stay any longer, but rushed indoors as fast as he could. Next morning the apple was gone. The prince had then, however, recovered his courage, and began to get ready for his journey, and wanted to set off to find the bird. The king fitted him out in grand style, and spared neither money nor fine raiment. When the prince had gone a bit on the way he became hungry, opened his scrip, and sat down to his breakfast by the roadside. A fox then came out of the wood, and sat down and looked at him. "Do give me a little to eat," said the fox. "I'll give you some powder and shot," said the prince. "My food I shall want myself. Nobody can tell how far and how long I may have to travel," said he. "Just so," said the fox, and so he went back into the wood again. When the prince had finished his meal and rested a while, he set out on his way again. After a long time he came to a big city, and in that city there was an inn, where there was always joy and never any sorrow. He thought that would be a nice place to stop at, and so he remained. And there was such dancing and drinking and joy and merrymaking that he forgot the bird and his father and his journey and the whole kingdom. Away he was, and away he stopped. The next year the second prince was to watch for the thief in the garden. He also sat down under the tree when the apple began to ripen. But one night, all of a sudden, the golden bird came flying, shining like the sun, and the prince became so afraid that he took to his heels and ran indoors as fast as he could. In the morning the apple was gone, but the prince had then recovered his courage, and wanted to set out to find the bird. He began to get ready, and the king fitted him out in grand style, and spared neither money nor fine raiment. But the same thing happened to him as to his brother. When he had got a bit on the way he became hungry, opened his scrip, and sat down to his breakfast by the roadside. A fox then came out from the pine wood, and sat down and looked at him. "Do give me a little to eat," said the fox. "I'll give you some powder and shot," said the prince. "My food I shall want myself. Nobody can tell how far and how long I may have to travel," said he. "Just so," said the fox, and so he went back into the wood again. When the prince had finished his meal and rested a while, he set out on his way again. After a long time he came to the same city and the same inn, where there was always joy and never any sorrow, and there he also thought it would be nice to stop. And the first he met was his brother, and so he remained. The brother had been leading a gay and reckless life, and had scarcely any clothes left on his back. But now he began afresh, and there was such dancing and drinking and joy and merriment that the second prince also forgot the bird and his father and his journey and the whole kingdom. Away he was, and away he stopped. When the time came for the apple to ripen again, the youngest prince was to go into the garden and watch for the thief. He took a companion with him who was to help him up into the tree, and to pass away the time so that he should not fall asleep. All of a sudden they saw a bright light, as if from the sun. Every feather of the bird could be seen long before it came to the tree. The prince climbed up into the tree, and at the same time the golden bird swooped down and took the apple. The prince tried to seize the bird, but he only caught a feather out of its tail. So he went to the king's bedroom, and as he came in with the feather it became as light as day. He also wanted to try if he could find his brothers and catch the bird, for he had been so near to it that he had got a feather from its tail, and would know it again anywhere, he said. Well, the king went and pondered long whether he should let him go, for he thought the youngest would not fare any better than the two eldest, who ought to have more knowledge of the world, and he was afraid he should lose him also. But the prince begged so earnestly that at last he got permission to go. He then began to get ready, and the king fitted him out in grand style both with clothes and money, and so he set off. When he had travelled for some time he became hungry, and took his scrip and sat down to have his breakfast. But just as he was in the midst of it a fox came out of the wood, and sat down close by his side and looked at him. "Do give me a little to eat," said the fox. "I shall want the food myself," said the prince, "for I cannot tell how far I shall have to travel, but I have enough to give you a little." When the fox had got the piece of meat, he asked the prince where he was going. Yes, that he would tell him. "If you will listen to me, I will help you, and you will have good luck," said the fox. The prince promised he would, and so they set off together. They travelled a while till they came to the same city and the same inn, where there was always joy but no sorrow. "I must keep outside here. The dogs are rather a nuisance," said the fox. And so he told the prince where his brothers were to be found, and what they were doing. "And if you go in there, you will not get any further either," said he. The prince promised he would not go in there, and gave him his hand on it, and so each went his way. But when the prince came to the inn and heard the noise and merriment going on, he felt he must go in. There was no help for it. And when he met his brothers there was much rejoicing, that he forgot both the fox and the journey, and the bird and his father. But when he had been there a while the fox came. He had ventured into the city after all, and opened the door a little, and made a sign to the prince, saying that now they must be off. So the prince bethought himself, and they went their way. When they had travelled a while they saw a big mountain far away. The fox said, 300 miles at the back of that mountain there is a gilded linden tree with golden leaves, and in that tree sits the golden bird from which you took the feather." Thither they travelled together. When the prince was going to catch the bird, the fox gave him some bright feathers which he was to wave in his hands, and so attract the bird, which would then fly down and sit on his hand. But the fox said he must not touch the linden tree, for inside it was a big troll, who owned it, and if the prince touched only the smallest twig, the troll would come out and kill him on the spot. No, he would not touch it, said the prince. But when he had got the bird on his hand, he thought he must have a twig of the tree. There was no help for it. It was so bright and beautiful. So he took a tiny little sprig, but the same moment the troll came out. "Who is that stealing my tree and my bird?" roared the troll, and he was so angry that he spurted sparks of fire. "Thieves believe that all men steal," said the prince, "but only those get hanged who do not steal properly," said he. The troll said that made no difference, and was going to kill him, but the prince begged him to spare his life. "Well," said the troll,
"If you can bring me back the horse which my